Hello, folks.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock podcast. This is episode 84, and tonight I have the man who helped snap Britt West Hancock's 85-year boys state basketball drought, Mr. Brian Peterson. How you doing tonight, Coach P?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm excited for this one. I'm kind of bummed. I just noticed this. That would have been pretty cool if this was episode 85, since I just mentioned an 85-year drought going to state basketball, but it's episode 84. But wish I would have thought of that a little ahead of time, but here we go. So before we get to Coach P here and talk some West Hancock boys basketball, I have 16 sponsors for tonight's episode. A few extra minutes tonight will be devoted to giving those businesses some advertising, but that's okay because a lot of money is going into the Sanger Legacy Fund. My sponsors tonight are Nick Schmidt, In His Image Photography and Red, White, and Brew Coffee Company by Ashley Mosier, Levi Don Trucking, Kurt Kopachik, Miller & Sons Golf Cars, Jay Hiscox of State Farm Insurance, Window World in Mason City, Swenson's Hardware, the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Doug and Kathy Zool, Daniels Auto Collision, First State Bank, Kelly Real Estate, Eric Kroll of Egg Performance, and Jan Rosga and her book Raw Survival. And I also want to point out that this August 11th, Hobo Day weekend, is the West Hancock Alumni Banquet. I'm on the alumni board. Bill Friedow heads that up along with some other people. If you want to go, make sure you message Bill. And if you just want to give to the scholarship fund through the alumni banquet, you can do that as well. And then August 25th, which is 1 month from today, is the West Hancock Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The inductees will be honored at halftime of the football game. And then afterwards at the Britt Golf Course, we'll have a semi-formal ceremony for that. So make sure you get out there for that. I got to give a rough head count to Josh Eisman here pretty soon for food. Him and some of his buddies do the food for that event. All right, and like I said, the 16 sponsors tonight, that money goes to the Sanger Legacy Fund. We use that to fund the Hall of Fame. We give scholarships to seniors every year. We support any athletic or activity funds at West Hancock or any youth programs or any community outreach programs or any needs at the school. If you want to give, go to sangerstrong.com or message me if you want to sponsor the podcast. All right, my way back one segment, 50 episodes ago on episode 34, I talked to Candace Wilson and her dad, Dave. Kansas was a 4-time All-American, 3-time national champion volleyball player at Central, and she was a national player of the year back in, I believe, 2000 or 2001. All right, I'm going to hit a few sponsors here, and then Coach P and I are going to start talking some b-ball. All right, Swenson's Hardware is your local independently family-owned hardware store and has been since 1977. Check them out at swensons.doitbest.com. Thanks to Doug and Kathy Zool again. And then Daniels Auto Collision is a recurring sponsor. They're back in my lineup. Jason Daniels is a 1990 West Hancock grad. His business is based in Charles City. Check him out at danielsautocollision.com. And then Jan Rosga has sponsored the podcast before. You can see the picture of her book. It's called Raw Survival. She's from my church in Indianola. She lost her son tragically when he was 18. She wrote a book about how to deal with that grief to help others. I did a video with Jan that I'll post, and then I'll link the Amazon link to how to buy her book. I bought it, read it, great book. Just saw Jan last night at a visitation in Indianola, and just a powerful book. Go ahead and order that if you can. All right, here we go, Coach P. Tell everybody real quick about yourself, what you're currently doing, how's the family, all that good stuff.
Currently, I just teach here, PE, weightlifting. Gave up the basketball job 3 years ago, I think it was. Ty graduated last year, 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. And Jackson graduates this year, our youngest. And other than that, we're kind of excited and getting ready for football and stuff now that we're be back in school here shortly. We also, I've been coaching and teaching for a long time, so I'm kind of coming to the end of my career too. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
You're young. You still got 15, 20 years left in you, right?
Oh, God, no. No.
talk about before West Hancock. You came here in 2008. Where were you? Where'd you grow up? First of all, let's start there. Where did you call home?
I was born and raised in Mesa City. Went to school there. Played 3 different sports. Played football, basketball, baseball. I did track in middle school, but I was only a pole vaulter. And Mike Angel, who was the high school pole vaulter, kind of taught me. But then between my 8th and 9th grade year, that's when Iowa said it's too dangerous and they cut it out of the program. So then I was done with track. But my wife has got me to love track over the years because she's a big track person. But and then Jackson's had some success too, and our programs here are great. So then I went to school, played at Nyack for baseball, basketball, went to UNI, and then I came back and started coaching with Bob Horner, who's part of Britt legacy too, here for a few years. And so I started coaching with him and Sassetti and Dave Wilson for about 5 years. And Bob came up to me and said, I know you want my job, but you got to go get experience. So I moved to Arizona, not knowing anybody for 12 years. I packed up, moved to Arizona, was out there for 12 years, taught everything, coached everything, offense coordinator for many years for football, head basketball, head baseball the whole time. And then was the head football coach at Sahuarita for 3 years, which was great. We went to the semis our last 2 years I was there. Never could get over the hump. It's kind of my friends joke. I've been in the state semis in basketball out there when I taught on the Indian reservation, 3 times with the girls and twice with the boys, because I was the head boys coach and the head girls varsity coach on the reservation. So I did both.
Yeah.
So 5 years we were in the state semis, football twice, and then basketball here once, and I could never get to the game. So my friends joked like, you just can't get her done, coach. I'm like, I guess not. So, and then I moved back to Perry, was there for 3 years, and then this job opened up and I came and applied for it, and that's how I ended up here.
Nice. Couple things. I joke that you're not old, but then you tell me you did pole vaulting and track, so you maybe are a little older than I thought.
I did in middle school.
Bob Horner did a podcast with me. I was scared for that one because I didn't know Bob. I remembered him growing up as being kind of a, that imposing, legendary type coach in the area. And man, I had so much fun doing that one with Bob. He told some really good stories and a couple off air that couldn't go on air that just about had me on the ground laughing were pretty good. And then why Arizona? What he said, go get experience, but what made you settle in Arizona?
Lute Olson.
Okay.
He used to coach for Iowa, and he left Iowa, went to Arizona. So I started following University of Arizona basketball. I'm like, what the heck? So I packed up, called my parents, said I need to drive the U-Haul, and I had a Mustang at the time and said, you need to drive that out. I'm going to take my truck out. And mom's like, where are you moving to? Because I didn't tell him. And I'm like, well, I'm moving to Arizona, so I need you guys' help. And my mom's like, well, what? I'm like, you don't know anybody there? I said, nope. I said, I don't. But so actually it was because of Lute Olson. And then just finally found a job. I mean, I found a job in September at an elementary job in San Manuel, Mammoth, which is just kind of north part of Tucson. Okay. And I was scared to death, like I wasn't going to get a job. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, this could be a mistake. And got that job, got some experience, got hooked up with competitive softball. And then when I was in Arizona, ran into the guy that run the Indian reservation and said, we need this, this, and this. You want to come? And I'm like, I'll be there Monday. I'll talk to you. And that's kind of how it all started.
Nice. And got that experience.
Yes, did.
And kind of a cool thing, you said you did boys and girls basketball at the same time. I'm sure you're aware of this, but since this is a West Hancock podcast, that's actually happened before at West Hancock. My basketball coach, Robin Drake, he was the boys and girls coach at the same time for, I think, I want to say 3 years. I'd have to double check, but he did at least my sophomore, junior year, and then my senior year, he gave up the girls and just did the boys. Then he left the district after that. But I couldn't imagine doing both at the same time. That would be, I do boys and girls golf, but that's a completely different world than basketball. Not even apples to oranges comparison. So crazy. Yeah. But
It was crazy, but also I know what I was. I'm 23, 24. I didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have anybody. So, I'd have boys practice or girls practice. And then right afterwards, the other team would come in and we traveled together. So I would coach one game and coach another game. And I know it's a West Hancock thing, but I got to tell you this story is, so we're down at where the Suns play. That's where they hold the state tournament.
yep.
And that year, my last year on the reservation, my girls were ranked 1 and we played up anyway. So we play. It's probably, we get beat in 4 overtimes
Ooh.
in the semifinal game. And Tanya and Senius, if I lined up all the players I ever had, and I don't mean this bad, she might be the first person I ever picked to be on my team. She might be my first pick.
Boys
She
or
was
girls.
that good. She was, boys, girls, doesn't matter. She might be my first round pick.
Nice.
And she knocked down a three straight times from 20 to 25 to 30. And it was her regular shot to keep forcing overtime. So we could make a long story short. The boys play the game after the game behind that one. So we had 1 game wait. Then I had to coach the boys. State semis. We go out there. We get beaten 3 overtimes. And so we're walking around and we're coming back, and the Utah Jazz were in town to play the Suns 2 nights later. And I'm walking down. All I see is Carl Malone, John Stockton, and the coach.
Jerry Sloan.
Oh, God. Yes, Jerry Sloan.
Jerry Sloan.
And so they were in the locker room talking. I just start to walk by, and I get almost past them, and Malone grabs my arm and goes, "You had all of us watching your guys' games, the last 2 games. What you've done is amazing." And he just kind of whatever. I'm like, "Yeah, but we got beat." He goes, "The style your guys play and what you guys do is just great." And so they invited both my boys' team and my girls' team into their practice, because in the stadium there, you go out the other way and there's a big, huge practice facility by the stadium, like connected. So we went there. They signed autographs for my kids. I mean, and you're talking about kids on the Indian reservation, and they felt good. I just sat on the sidelines like, I can't believe I just got beat twice, 4 overtimes and 3 overtimes. But they loved the experience.
So I could end the podcast right here on this note, because the Utah Jazz have and always will be my favorite basketball team. They have been since I was like 8 years old. So for you to just bring up
Pick and roll.
John Stockton and Jerry Sloan on my podcast, that's like this is it. Like, that's as good as it's gonna get. Like,
they invented pick and roll, baby.
Oh, I love it. 15 feet away from me, I have about 2,000 Stockton and Malone cards in my closet. I could literally go get them in about 5 seconds. So, Jerry Sloan was one of my all-time favorites. So, yeah, well, let's transition back to Iowa here. You said you were at Perry for a couple years, and then this job opened up. What was that like, interviewing for this job, getting this job, and getting started in Britt?
We knew we wanted to kind of be back closer to home. That's why we moved back. And then the only job I got was at Perry, which I was the head football coach down there and assistant basketball coach. This job opened up. I came to interview for it. And I know there was a couple of students in there, Coach Horner, Jeff Raker. And I'm not sure if Ruth was in there or not, or Bergie. But just came in and interviewed, and and when it was all said and done, my past came up, and Coach Sanger knows Coach Horner, and next thing I know, Coach Sanger gets up and leaves the interview. He just gets up and leaves. I'm like, oh, this can't be good. And he ends up calling Coach Horner. And at the time, Coach Horner was working selling cars for the Chevy dealership right off the interstate there on 18.
Yep.
Bob got into his vehicle, drove over, and had a conversation with Horner. And we got done with the interview, walked around this and that. And basically, Coach Sanger called back and said, do not let him leave town. And if it wasn't for Coach Sanger, I probably wouldn't have never got the job.
Nice. And Coach Horner as well. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Those legendary type coaches. That's pretty neat.
Yes.
Yeah. So first year of basketball, 2008-2009 season, you guys went 14-8. As far as I know, I'd have to go back and check, but that'd be the first winning season at West Hancock since 2001-2002, which would have been like the school board president Ryan Johnson's senior year, Jeff Peterson, Josh Eisman. They went maybe 2 games over 500 that year. And then my 3 years, we were just about 500 after that. And then after that, I don't recall a winning season. So what was your approach going into that first season at West Hancock, knowing that there hadn't been a ton of success in previous years?
Well, you know, when you come in, at the time, everybody said this is a football and wrestling community. And my thing is why can't it be both? Why can't it be wrestling and basketball? You know, there's enough athletes to go around, whatever. But I think that, well, when I got the job, Dale Hesley was an assistant at the time, or was the head coach and gave it up, but he wanted to still be on the staff. And Dale and I are pretty good friends now. But I kind of wanted to clean slate, and Dale is a heck of a good coach. He's done a lot of good things for Coach Sonish's programs over the years. But I kind of want a clean slate, so I said, no. I said, I think I'm gonna go do something different. So I had no assistants but me. And after talking to some people, probably the best thing I ever did was go talk to Kevin Eisman. And I went and talked to Kevin and said, you know, I need an assistant. I would love to have you. Gave him my pitch, and he goes, well, I need to talk to Michelle. And so they talked, and a few days later, he says, I'm in. And then I'm like, okay, we need somebody else. So then I went and talked to Coach Becker, Jim Becker, who is a mentor of mine also, and talked to him and got him on board. So that was probably the start of it all. You have to have the coaches with you. And, you know, Coach Ice and Coach Becker, you know, we all have different personalities, but we all meshed really well together. But I have to give a lot of credit to Colton Benson, who was an all-state kid, all-conference kid, his junior year, point guard, always wanted the ball in his hands. But I moved him to shooting guard because we had Waldo Gerardo Ibarra coming up as a 9th grader. And I worked with him all summer, and I basically told him, I said, you know what, you're going to be my starting point guard. And that's something I got from Bob Horner as well. If you have someone that is equal or maybe just a little bit less than what you have, start for 4 years, because when it's all said and done, they're gonna take you where you want to go. So that's what I did. And then I had Brandon Goins and Brett Swanson. Those 3 seniors, they were the ones that kind of got the program going because they bought in right away. They bought in, and we're gonna press you baseline to baseline. At that time, I was a big man guy, so we did a lot of man stuff and just we got after it. But if it wasn't for those 3 guys buying in, and then they kind of taught the kids under them, and then those freshmen, Gerardo, Nelson Barranca, who could have been a heck of a player, and those guys that were freshmen, that kind of set the tone for us to jumpstart it.
Yep. And like you said, you played a fun, fast-paced game, and that wasn't exactly something that we were used to at West Hancock. When I played, we slowed it down, and we ran a half-court set, and it might take us 30 seconds to get a good inside shot or kick it back out for a decent outside shot. But we'd play 40 to 37 type games pretty regularly. Played hard, good defense and stuff, pressed a little bit, but you came in. I remember I was, off in college or whatever and just getting out of college and hear about games or see games and be like, you got to just the style of play, the pace of the game is just a lot of fun. So I would guess with Swanson and Colton Benson and Brandon, and I also had Josh Crowder was a senior that year. It'd be hard not to want to play that type of ball. It's a lot of work, it's tiring, but you do it well and it's a lot of fun.
And Josh was a bruiser, right? I mean, he didn't play a ton of minutes, but when he played, he did his job and he was happy. In fact, he won the first ever coaches award. That's the only award we voted on, and it goes to a senior that best exemplifies everything about our program. And Josh is the one that won it that year.
Yep. So next season and the season after that, you guys went 14-9 and then 14-8 again to give you a 42-25 record in your first 3 seasons, which again, if I were to go back in history and lump together, 3 season spans in West Hancock history, it would be pretty hard to find such a successful 3-year run there. And that didn't even count Gerardo's senior year coming up, 2011, 2012. First of all, how'd you guys do in the postseason? You went 14-8, 14-9, 14-8. How far did you make it in the playoffs those years?
We never made it to the sub-state final game in those early years. We made it to the district finals, but never to the sub-state final. I'm almost positive we didn't. So we'd make it to the district finals and then get beat or whatever and not make it to the sub-state final game there. But those years there, so Waldo, you had Waldo, you had Jacob Patterson, you had Johnny Ekoff, you had Junior, Eric Cox Jr. I call him Junior still. I don't know if he likes it, but I still call him Junior, especially when his dad's around. And then Ryan Fetters. Ryan Fetters was a heck of a great basketball player. And if we could have kept, he didn't come out his senior year because he had some other things going on. And now he's really successful. I think he's down in Des Moines. He's a principal and he's got a family. So that's all great too. But those guys kind of like took over those couple years. And the sad thing is that in 2012, Waldo's senior year, I will go to my grave saying we would have went to state that year had he not gotten hurt in football.
Yeah.
I mean, we just, and then I look back and it's probably one of my biggest regrets is, okay, so now I don't have a point guard. So I make Junior my point guard, who was my shooting guard. Well, then I need a shooting guard. My next best shooter was Jacob Patterson, who's 6'4", and probably the best post player in the conference. Now he's my shooting guard. And, and I tell Jacob this all the time. I think I messed up, and I tell him all the time, I should have just left you in the post and figured something out. And I apologize to him all the time. He's like, Coach, it's not a big deal. It's 10 years ago, whatever, but I still feel bad. And that's probably my biggest regret. But, not having Waldo in that leadership, it hurt. And the other guys were great, don't get me wrong, but he was kind of the glue of our team. And that's why I started him his freshman year, and losing him for the whole season. And, he was 8 points short of 1,000 points going into his senior year. And he rehabbed, and we actually played him against Newman. The second to last game of the season. Last game of the season, we played him. And he couldn't move hardly, but he wanted to play, and he was cleared. We just sat him in the corner. We played 5-on-4 on defense, and he stayed at the other end, and we just gave him the ball. And I think he hit 7 threes. I think he was 7 for 10 or something crazy like that. I'd have to look up. It could be wrong. But he scored 18 points, whatever, like in a heartbeat to get his 1,000 points. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We're going to talk about him in a second here after I hit some sponsors, because he's one of those all-timers in West Hancock Britt basketball. Because, my senior year, I think I scored 230 points or something like that. Any kid in my generation, if they had 300-ish career points, that was pretty good. This kid was putting up 300 points in a season, and that doesn't even count assists and steals and rebounds and just leading the team and good defensive player. So I want to get to Gerardo here in a few minutes. First of all, though, I want to hit a few more sponsors. I want to thank the Jay Hiscock State Farm Team and Britt for supporting the podcast and the Legacy Fund. Give Jay or Lindsay a call at 843-3563. Levi Dawn Trucking. Thanks to Levi and his trucking company for sponsoring all the podcast episodes. Call Levi at 641-860-0077. Thanks to Nick Schmidt, a 2000 West Hancock grad, for always giving to the Legacy Fund. And then my favorite brother, Eric Kroll, and played in those same seasons as Gerardo, at Ag Performance in Buffalo Center, one of the Midwest leaders in seed. Give Eric a call at 515-341-3361. That's Ag Performance in Buffalo Center. So Waldo, Gerardo, I have it down that I'd have to do the math again, but I had it down that he scored 988 career points, but he did get to his 1,000 by the end of the season.
He did.
Okay.
Yep. He only played one game, and then the first round game we played against Corwith Wesley Laverne, and we sat him, and we were going to play him the next game, and he was still kind of sore, so we sat him again, and we got beat.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it ended, but yeah.
So he only played literally one game his senior year.
One game.
One game.
Yep, against Newman.
Stood in the corner and shot the ball when it came to him. Yeah. Yeah, because
pretty much.
His first 3 seasons, he scored 169 as a freshman, 402 as a sophomore, 387 as a junior. I mean, he was going to have to probably bear a little more of the offensive load as a senior, even with what he had accomplished in earlier years. You're probably looking at a 450 to 500 point season for him if he's healthy. Just a shame he broke his leg in that state title game in football and only got to play in that one game. Just great dude. He's going to do a podcast with me later this year or early 2024, whenever it comes through. But where would you rank Gerardo? For sure in your seasons as head coach, but you kind of know the history of the program. Where would you rank him all time in the program?
In the years I've been here?
Either way, yeah.
He's up there. I mean, he's a very genuine guy. I mean, he did everything I asked, and so I think he was my first point guard here, so I'm kind of biased towards him. Yeah. But we're playing Ventura. I think we play Lake Mills on Friday night, and we go and play Ventura the next day at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's just crazy. I couldn't believe the schedule, but I'm like, and we're all in the pace we played and all that stuff. So we always started off sluggish. Well, we were playing the older Betts, James's older brother, who James ended up going UNI and played for Garner. And they had a good team. And we're playing, and Waldo's struggling. I mean, he is struggling. He's turned the ball over, called timeout, and probably Coach Pete fashion. I kind of get on a little bit, and he goes, just put Colton back there, because that was his go-to. Just put Colton back at point, and I'll run the wing. And I'm like, no. I go, you're my point guard. You're bringing the ball up. So either you're going to get it done or you're going to keep turning it over, but it's going to be your choice. And then I remember Colton walked up to him and goes, you're our point guard. Just get it done, And Waldo just got so frustrated. I can't remember how the game went after that, but I know Waldo and I talk about that quite a bit when we run into each other, because I got on him pretty hard. I'm like, no, either you play point guard or you can sit on the bench. What do you want to do? And he's always up for the challenge. He was a great leader. The kid came to practice all the time his senior year. He didn't have to. I mean, we didn't think he'd ever play. I mean, it was bad, and it was just, he was a great guy. He is a great. I have a lot of love and respect for Gerardo, and the reason I say that, not many people know this. Gerardo really doesn't care for football, and you can ask him when he's on your podcast. I had this talk, and I was like, well, then why do you play football, Waldo? He goes, because everybody else on the team needs me, and I can help them win. So I'm here for them, not because I like football. And that's the type of guy Gerardo is, Waldo. I mean, I just like, I do not expect somebody like that.
Yeah, definitely. And like I was saying, not only was he a good scorer, 326 career rebounds, 372 assists, 211 steals, made 335 field goals, which included 84 threes, and made 234 free throws. He did that in 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
you can barely count that one game because he had all those points, but stood there, so no other stats are even accumulated. But literally 3 seasons, and he did that, and that counted his freshman year, not even his senior year. So pretty crazy. That team went 11-12, pretty much without him. And then the next season, you guys go 12-12. And then the next year, 2013-2014 season, you guys go 16-6. Your most wins, least losses in your tenure up to this point. You guys got fourth in the conference, which I believe was the last year of the North Iowa Conference before it went to the top of Iowa. You had Jacob Halick, Robert Gorish were your only seniors that season. So you relied heavily on those underclassmen that eventually got you to state those 3 years. Talk about that season before the first team to go to state in 2015.
Was just Jacob. I may have to go back a year back because when they were freshmen, Connor, Nate, and those guys,
Yeah.
John Burgard and Eccles, they started at the beginning of the year when those couple more freshmen, and then we also had Ricky Ibarra, Nelson Barranca. Deep down, I really kind of wanted to start with 4 freshmen, but we started John and Eccles to start the season. But as the season went on, I moved them to the bench, and it could have went one or two ways during their freshman year, Connor and Nate's freshman year, and that good group of freshmen. But John and Josiah, they weren't happy about it. And we had conversations, we talked about it in my office and stuff like that. But I said, this is what's best for the program, this and that. But a lot of times what I try, it's not all who starts, it's who finishes games. So John and Josiah actually finished a lot of our games for us, but they might not have started late in the year. So I got to give those 2 credits because that's tough to do. That's just, it's tough, and it's not easy for a high school kid to, take a backseat to some freshmen. But they handled it very well. The next year, the sophomore year, Jacob, he's feisty, and him and I are still close. He works for John Halick. I worked for him in the fall, and Jacob and I talk quite a bit still, and he's got a beautiful family now. But he's a Halick. He's feisty, and he was that way. I still remember we're playing West Bend, and that's when West Bend had those 2 twins that could just light it up. So it was Connor and Nate sophomore year, Jacob, and Robert senior year. And we're in overtime, tied. We get a steal. Jacob has a breakaway. Now, granted, and I'll tell him that I've never seen him actually dunk in my life anyway, even though he's 6'5", 6'6". He gets the breakaway. He takes off, tries to dunk it. Back rims it to the ceiling and misses it. So we have to go to double overtime. Luckily, we win. Now we can make fun of Jacob.
Yeah.
But Jacob was a hard worker, man. He did everything I asked to. And Robert, he came off the bench. He was a great shooter, but it was kind of transition from freshman, sophomore that Connor and Nate kind of started taking over the team a little bit, and Jacob and Robert, they were perfectly fine with that.
Yep. You talk about John Burgart and Josiah. Those were friends of my brother's. My brother went to West Hancock through 4th grade. Or no, he left after 3rd grade, went to North Iowa in 4th grade when I was a senior. Any good stories coaching against my brother? And
Oh my God.
what would it have been like if he would have been that Wes Hancock all those seasons with those guys?
Well, I tell you what, Hender's had some good teams over there.
Yeah.
I mean, with your brother Eric and good Lord.
Troy Ketwick, Jordan
they had,
Anderson, Mark Milbrandt. Yep.
yes.
Corey Hobbs.
Yep. Milbrandt, Ketwick. Yep. Hobbs. Okay. So, and his dad's an official, right?
Yep.
But he didn't officiate much when his boy was in school. And anyway, so we're playing at our place and it's back and forth. I mean, and we take the lead. They take it out. Hobbs hits a 12-footer away at the buzzer and it goes in. And we're just sitting there going, oh my God, are you kidding me? But Eric, I would take Eric. I would probably took all starting 5 on that team, on my team. I mean, they played well. They got after it. Eric was heady, smart, knew what to do with the ball. In a way, you look at him and with his teams, there's a resemblance of him and Connor. You know what I mean? Just because they were coaches on the floor. I mean, and Chad and I have talked about this. When you have teams like that, and we went to state their junior and senior year, it's probably the easiest coach I ever did.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, because everything was already done. The hay was in the barn 2 years ago, and the kids went out and do it. And we'd call timeout, and I would say, "Hey, let's do this." And Connor and Nate go, "Coach, this is what we need to do right here." Like, if that's what you guys want to do, let's do it. If you guys, and the reason, and I learned that from Bob too, with Dean Oliver, Harrington, Melman, and all those guys is that once they've earned that right to be able to talk and have that communication, if they want to run something, that means they believe in it. And if they believe in it, they're going to execute it to, the best of their ability. Instead of me saying, nope, we ain't doing that, we're going to do this, and they don't buy in. So there's a lot of times during timeouts between Connor and I, Nate and I, we'd have dialogue and so it was pretty easy because they were coaches on the floor and Eric and it was Troy Ketwick, right?
Yep. Troy. Yep.
Was it Troy?
Troy.
Yeah. So those two, I kind of saw the same type of thing when Henders was there, and they went to state 2 straight years, I think.
No, just the one.
One, okay.
They went their junior year in 2012, and then they lost in the district finals their senior year. Eric broke his hand in football, and
that's right.
It was somewhat similar to Gerardo. He played a lot more than Gerardo his senior year, but he was pretty limited in what he could do.
Right.
At that point. But yeah, Eric, I always said he could have taken over a game anytime he wanted to, but he was so team oriented and wanted to make sure that distributed the ball and got everyone in a rhythm throughout a game. And I always enjoyed watching him play. And Coach Bob Sanger.
They were fun teams.
Yeah,
they were fun teams to coach against. Actually, I mean, and Chad and I talk about it because him and I'll talk still occasionally off and on here and just BS.
Yeah. Coach Bob Sanger and I talked about this once. He goes, if you guys would have never left Britt, we would have won state in 2011 because I had Eric Cox at quarterback, who was a good athlete. I could have had him elsewhere on the field, your brother at quarterback, or vice versa. I could have had Cox at quarterback, Eric somewhere else on the field. He goes, that would have just been a huge weapon to have, and I assume basketball-wise, it would have been pretty similar for you to have him out there. So,
if we could have thrown him in there with those guys, holy buckets!
Yeah, that would have been fun. But my parents, we'll forgive them someday for that. Someday. Yeah. So let's talk about that first trip to state in 2015. Not that I don't want to talk about this first trip to state because I'm going to be talking to the seniors at the end of August. Jordan Savoy, Trevor Nail, and Joey DeHart, James Vanderplug. I'm going to talk to them about. We're going to do a full episode on that season. But still want to obviously talk about it. You guys make it to state for the first time since 1930. That was 85-year streak snapped. That 1930 team, This was a one-class system. They lost to Atlantic, who we would never play nowadays because they're pretty solid 3A team and we're a middle of the pack 1A team. But we lost to Atlantic 31-22. Atlantic lost to Davenport in the next round, and then Davenport beat Newton in the title game 16-11. Basketball was a little bit different back in 1930 than it was in 2015. I remember talking to you in the stands before that game. I ran into Coach Hinders, and then you were by him. Our game was the late game. And I asked you, I said, are there any members of the 1930 team still alive right now? And I think you mentioned to me that like the last one had just passed away not that long ago. But man, 85 years, that guy had to have been pushing 100. So um, what was it like for you guys to go to state for the first time in 85 years for the school?
Well, it was amazing, but you do have to go back a little ways because it doesn't just happen. You have to, and I'm going to forget somebody, and if I do, I apologize. But when I first got here, I'm like, okay, we need a little kids program, and that's where the Savoys, the Soniuses, the Pauluses, the Lears, I'm probably forgetting somebody. All these parents jumped on board and started coaching different age levels on up. So they were in third grade when I came here, that group. And all these parents started working with them and continue to work all the way through middle school. Middle school, that was Corey and Jolene. They kind of took over the Lears and did a phenomenal job too. Oh, Coach Iceman, he was in on that too. Coach Ice coached a lot of that stuff, the little kid stuff. So a lot of credit goes to the parents devoting all that time when the kids were younger to help them develop and coach them to get them. And I always joke with Sonia's, you didn't do anything to get those girls there. You need to thank all the parents. Well, same is true with me. I need to thank all the parents because they did all the hard work. I got to have them when they're in high school and they're starting, and I just had to continue the development. But when we did make it to state, it might have been the best feelings ever because that was a goal that we set forward a long time ago. And like I said, in 2012, I thought we would have been the year we went. And then, bad luck, whatever, stuff goes down. Then it was a battle, another grind. And when we did get there, we kept on telling ourselves, don't be satisfied. Don't be satisfied. Let's focus. Let's lock in. Let's go down for a reason. But I think a little bit, we were kind of a little satisfied, like, geez, we finally did it. 85 years, and kind of took a breath. But it was a learning experience for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I mentioned those four seniors, Savoy, Nayland, DeHart, Vanderplug. Jim Becker, you mentioned earlier, he passed away during this season. You said he was a mentor and a friend of yours. I'm sure there was some motivation there to play for Jim and his family, to be there for his family. Talk about Coach Becker a little bit.
Well, I'll try. He was, the funny thing is, Jim was the calming factor with Ice and I. But I think he's broken more clipboards than Ice and I. But he was supposed to be the calm one. But, I still remember we were playing Garner that night, and I get a phone call. I'm not going to say from who, but who got called out there and said, Coach, no one knows yet, but we just lost Coach Becker. And I was dumbfounded, and my hair's standing up on me right now again. And I'm like, oh. He's like, but you can't say anything. The only reason I'm calling is because I don't want you to wait for him to get on the bus. And I'm like, okay, so I can't say anything. I know it. We get on the bus. We go over to Garner. And we're sitting there. And now you can just see our crowd starting to whisper. And the JV boys game just got done. And I talked to Matt Graham, who's the AD. I said, you need to give us a little bit of time because I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. I said, but I need to talk to boys. I need to talk to the girls. And he's like, we completely understand, whatever. So the game, I called all the kids in, and we went into the girls' locker room, but we had all the kids there and all the coaches. And I told them what had happened. And we sat there for a while. Probably I cried, whatever. And I just said, guys, I said, I don't know what you guys want to do. It's up to us. Do we want to play? Do we want to just reschedule? Let's go home and let's deal with what we need to deal with. And a couple of the kids that were that Jim was a mentor of too, through the Christian youth thing, that after school stuff here, they got up and just looked at me, and I won't say the exact words, but they just said, we're playing and we're going to go out and play for Jim Becker. And we went out there. You'll have to ask Coach Sonius. I don't know what they did, but I know we probably put our best complete game together that night and just played phenomenal. And, so then after that, it was tough. And I had Mallory was my manager. Mallory Lear was, or Mallory Becker was. And, and I had Colin playing and had Gavin as I don't know if he's a manager. No, I think he was playing. Maybe Colin had just, but there was just a lot of different emotions going on, and that was tough. It was very tough. But we did some different things. And when we did go to state, everybody wants to wear the school colors red, which we did have red also, but his favorite color was orange. So we did state shirts in orange also in honor of him and stuff. But yeah, it was tough. That was rough, and it was tough. It was tough for me.
And, at the end of the day, after something like that, wins and losses aren't important at all. Kind of puts life in perspective. But man, the things that sports can do to help people in those situations, like it brings people together. It gives you a distraction from things. I couldn't imagine. I never got to know Coach Becker. I was already several years out of school and even out of college at that point. Heard nothing but good things about him throughout the years. And crazy situation. So,
and we changed our coach. We changed our coaches award to the Jim Becker Coaches Award. So if you exemplify what Jim was all about, that's who would get that senior award.
That's cool. Yeah. So you went down to state, lost that game to Danville, 69-47. Danville had been to state many times. I think they were kind of on like a 3 or 4 year run. Was it the Sukup boys? I think those what their names were.
Oh yeah, that was them.
Not ideal, but a good experience for those younger guys. Those seniors got to say they got to go to state. And then, like you said, those next 2 years with Nate and Connor and those guys ended up being a pretty good run for you. So before we get to those seasons, let's hit a few more sponsors, and we'll talk about those last 2 years at state. Michael Ewing and Ewing Funeral Home and Company, Monument Company, with locations in Britt, Kanawha, Clarion, Belmont, and Dow's. Contact Mike at 843-3839. First State Bank in Britt has everything you want and wants to be your bank. They're great supporters of the Legacy Fund. Give them a call at 843-4411. That's First State Bank in Britt. Miller and Son Golf Cars, family-owned operation with over 50 years experience just outside of Britt. Skip and Jim Miller can be contacted at 843-4132. Email them at customerservice@millergolfcars.com. And then I have a double business here. Ashley Mosier owns In His Image Photography, and will soon be opening up a red, white, and brew coffee company at the old Hobnob location. She does a great job and is putting a lot back into the Britt community. So reach out to Ashley on Facebook. Thanks to Kurt Kopacik for sponsoring this episode all the way down in Georgia. And then Kelly Real Estate is located downtown Britt, owned by Steve and Deanna Kelly. Give them a call at 843-4102. I do have to give a shout out to Deanna. When I was in town delivering books a couple weeks ago now, she just took my list, looked at all the people she could help deliver books to, family members, people in the community, and her and Kennedy took a couple stacks of them and saved me a lot of time on that day. So And thanks to the
That's
Britt
nice.
Parts Crafted Bike and Tractor Night Cruise for sponsoring the podcast. They just had their first event night last week and another one coming up in a month. Give Jared Wingard a call at 515-408-1074 or check out their website, brittcarcruise.com. And then thanks as always to Window World of Mason City and Katie Showalter for sponsoring the podcast. Once an Eagle, always an Eagle. Fly high, Coach Sanger and Joey Showalter. All right, Coach, let's talk about the next two trips to state, 2016, 2017. After that 2015 trip to state where you lost to Danville, feeling pretty good about, going back to Des Moines wasn't just a possibility. It was more of an expectation. How are you guys feeling with Connor and Nate? You also had Colton Reuter, Alex Hartwig, some other kids I put down there. What were you feeling going into 2016 and 2017?
And we had Nayland and Jordan that year too, right? Or was that 15?
They were seniors.
Or are they gone?
Yep, they were gone. Yep.
In 15?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and to go back to 15 real quick, Trevor needed 500 points to hit 1,000 his senior year. That guy averaged 30 points probably the last 10 games of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Connor and Nate just took over. And Jordan kind of was our rim protector. That dude's got arms that go from here to Corwith. I tell you what, he's just long, and he could shoot the ball for us. And Jordan did a lot for us also. So just want to talk about them briefly. But Trevor kind of carried us down the stretch in 15, and then the sub-state final game, I could be wrong, but I think he hit 30 and got his 1,000 point at sub-state final game.
Okay.
And but they were good guys. But that year, and we had Seth Weiland, 6'8", 6'9", long, lanky, not a post player. He's going to shoot the ball. But coming into the season, we felt confident. I mean, our goal was we're going to state and we need to win it. That was our only goal. Win conference, win state. That was our two goals that year. And obviously everybody knows we fell a little bit short, but we came in and we played with a purpose that year. And Connor's do it all. Some of his passes, it just amazed me, and Nate's not going to rebound. He was only 5'5". He was going to say he's 5'8", but he's not. So the shot goes up. Nate's gone. Now we got to rebound with four guys because Nate's not going to be here. He's gone. But I think the best thing that we did is we went to a matchup zone, which I've always been a man guy, but over the years I kind of started changing a little bit, talked to the coaches, and we kind of all decided if we can teach the matchup, because that was our Achilles heel for a long time when we first got here, was we could put the ball in the hoop, but we couldn't stop people. Well, then, and that was the case their freshman year. Our kids thought, Connor and Nate, we're just going to go out and score people. Well, it doesn't work that way. And then their sophomore year, they got a little bit better. Their junior year, they really started dialing in the defense because we put in a matchup zone, a kind of a 2-3, kind of turns into a 1-3-1. But it's from Jim Boeheim, who I got to talk with a couple of different times at coaching clinics and pick his brain. And so that's kind of the matchup zone we put in. And my God, we just let the four guys get crazy on the matchup, and we just had Seth stand there by the hoop, and he protected the hoop. And so I think defensively, that was probably the key that junior year going into their senior year, was that matchup zone that we put in. And Coach Ice and Coach Jay at the time was on our staff at that time too. After Coach Becker had passed away, we got Jay to get on board with us too, which was a big help. But they bought in on the defensive end. Our defense was our offense. Yeah. I'll just put it that way. They bought in and said, if you guys want to get where we want to get, make your defense your offense. And I took something from I'm not a big fan of Grinnell's offense, where they have 5 guys in and out, this and that, and all they do is jack up threes. Although sometimes our games look like it. But I took something from him when I sat down and talked with him because we wanted to get quick shots. So our goal was to get a shot up in 7 seconds. As soon as we touched the ball, we wanted a shot up in 7 seconds. But the key was we wanted to pass up a good shot for a great shot in 7 seconds. You can get a shot in 7 seconds, but it is a great shot.
Yeah.
So if you pass up that good shot, now you're getting turns into a great shot. And those kids bought into all that. And that was probably the key to their senior year was the defensive end.
Yep, and that was 2016 at state. You guys beat IKM Manning 67-51 in the first round, and then you ran into St. Albert's Council Bluffs in the semis. Lost that game 70-52. But the nice thing is that if you make the semis, you get a third game, and you guys got Gladbrook Rhinebeck that year. And I'm drawing a blank on that kid's name. Was it like Connor?
No, Joe.
Yeah, there you go. We beat them 61-56, and did they go on and win state the next year? Got runner up. I mean, I think they made it to the title game one of those years.
Well, that was Joe's senior year because he was. I'm biased, but Connor should have won player of the tournament. That's his senior year, and Joe got it.
Okay.
Not Connor, and they took 4th, and he still got it. But they won state the year before, and he won player of the year.
Yeah, that's it.
But the funny thing is the Linville game, the coach had the All-Star game and chose his son over Connor, who Connor was one of the best players in the state, and he will get, I guarantee you, him and Nate will be in the high school Hall of Fame for basketball when it's done. I already got the paperwork. I'm already working on it. Those two deserve to be in it. And Connor was one of the best players for 4 years that I ever saw as a high school kid.
Yeah, I mean,
the Linville coach coached the All-Star game. Didn't take Connor, took his son instead. And so I might have fibbed a little bit, but as we're getting ready to warm up and all that, and I talked to the coach, come back, said, Connor, I just want to let you know, he thinks his son's better than you. That's what he told me. I'm not going to confirm or deny that's the truth, but that's what I told Connor. And Connor goes out and has a triple-double against him. Like, okay, I'm not good enough. I'll show you. And so as a coach, you got to kind of know how to talk to your players and whatnot. But Connor nearly averaged a triple-double at state tournament. He was 0.6 rebounds away from a triple-double.
Yeah.
Average in the 3 games. And so I think he should have got it. But the St. Albert's game, on the year, we shot 49% on the year overall. 2s, 3s combined, whatever. We were 49% shooting team because we could shoot it. St. Albert's percentage was 31.
Yeah.
In that game, we shot 31%. They shot 49% for that game, and we still had a chance to win that thing.
Yeah.
That's going to eat at me forever, that game.
But you got to end the season with a W, though, even though it wasn't in a championship game. Like I said, you beat Gladbrook Rhinebeck. You already talked about them quite a bit, but what was it like losing Connor and Nate and that group of guys as seniors 2016? You already talked about future Hall of Famers, but I talked about Gerardo a little bit being an all-timer. These two definitely all-timers, Hall of Famers. What can you say that was going to leave your program when those guys graduated that year?
Well, it was tough. Like when we played Gladbrook, I think Connor, it was tough because in the locker room, we just lost our chance, and that was our only goal. We want to win state. That was our goal. And so we went back to the hotel. My wife, Michelle Eisman, a bunch of other parents catered in some food from Spaghetti Works for us. And, we just sat there and talked, and we're like, you know what? If we got to play, we might as well go out and play. I mean, we have another game. Let's just go play. And, let's bring the energy tomorrow. And so we're warming up, and you could see it. And I got my lineup in. And we also did win the sportsmanship award that year. And our fans were great. But we go into the locker room, and I already have my lineup in the book. And at a certain point, you can't change it. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, Alex Hartwig, who's been a big part of this program. Colt Reuter's 6 foot was our starting center when we have a 6'9" kid on defense, swatting balls left and right and set a single record in the state for blocks. He could shoot threes and handle the ball. And I have a 6 foot setter in Colt Reuter who only weighed 150 pounds. But I'm sitting there going, I should have started Alex. I just sat there and I should have turned it into a senior night thing.
Yeah.
And so I went back out. As we came back out of the locker room, I grabbed Dylan Apples. Said, Dylan, this is what I want to do. I said, are you okay with it? He goes, Coach, I am 100% behind you. I think it's a great idea. So I go to the scores table and I said, can I change the lineup? I said, I know I can't, but I want to without getting it technical. I wanted this into a senior night. My first kid off the bench is a senior. I want to start him. And officials came over. It was Todd Thompson, who's one of the best officials in the state.
Yep.
Who was AD golf coach at North Butler. But they just looked at me and their jaws kind of dropped and they said, absolutely. Absolutely. No penalties, no nothing. You change it. We think that is probably the coolest thing. We've never had a coach or a team do that. Make that into a senior night thing for them at state tournament. And so we did it and stuff. And a couple of officials on the bench I know from when I was the AD and stuff. And we've had conversation after that. And they just thought that was the neatest thing. And so I go back and said, Alex, you're starting. And he just kind of looked at me. And he's like, thanks, Coach. This means a lot to me. I said, go thank Dylan. Because Dylan's the one that kind of said, yep, let's do it, Coach. So he went and thanked Dylan. And the thing about the Gladbrook game, I think Connor took it personal versus Joe because Joe was a heck of a player. So they kind of battled the first half, and I have many stories, different podcasts about Todd Thompson and I's conversation on the sidelines. And in the first half, and we were clicking, and we're up 17-19, and we were doing anything and everything we can. But they were still, I thought, grabbing, holding, kind of slowing us up, this and that. And so I get on, we were shooting free throws. And I'm like, Todd, I said, it's every time down the court. I said, are you guys got to call more of this stuff? And he looks at me, goes, like this, Pete, because he doesn't want to see him talking to me. He goes, you're up 19 points. When they start playing defense, I'll start calling something. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we come out at halftime. We're up 19. They go on a 15-2 run. It's like a 4-point game like that. And I'm like, and they're shooting free throws. And Todd's in front of me. I'm like, Todd. He goes, what's up, Coach? I'm like, it's a 4-point game. They started playing defense. You want to start calling something? He just starts laughing. He takes off running down the court. But that was a good game. We ended on a win. And I was happy for those seniors to go out and stuff like that. And we still had something coming back with Dylan, Ben, and Chase, Seth, and those guys come back another year. Didn't have Connor and Nate and those guys, but we had a lot coming back also the following year.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up those consolation games. It's great you get that last game, but I have seen some horrendous consolation games. I think the year Danville beat us, was that the year they lost in the semis, and then in the consolation game they got beat by like 45 points or something like that.
Yeah, they checked out.
Yeah, Nottoway Valley, same thing.
And we talked about that, Dan. We're like, if we're gonna play, let's go play. And it was a heck of a consolation game. I don't even remember what the score ended up, but I mean, when they came back on us, I thought Gladbrook was just going to check it in, but they didn't. I mean, they came back and fought, and it was a back and forth game, and we got came on top, which was awesome. And like I said, we got the sportsmanship award, which was really nice to see and stuff. And, it means a lot because it comes from the officials on the court, comes from the people at the scores table, because they hear everything. They hear everything. They know how coaches and the fans and everybody interacts with everybody, so they kind of know. So that was kind of a neat award, and it's up in the trophy case, so that's a cool thing to do.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and 2017, like we said, is your third trip to state. You lost that senior group with Nate and Connor, Colton, Alex. Personally, I don't know if as many people besides you guys probably thought a third trip to state was even in the realm of possibility, because you literally lost, like you said, 2 Hall of Fame type players. Yeah, you had Seth and Dylan and Ben Eisman. I have Glenn Smith, Chandler Schuver, Garrett Fosdick, McCoy Yakel, Chase Eisman. They were juniors that year, those two. But you lost Nate and Connor. Those are 2 all-timers. Was it still an expectation to get to state in 2017 for you guys?
Just to be honest, after that year, we took it all in. It was disappointing, this and that. We went through off-season workouts, probably played 25 summer games, crossed wherever. And I thought we could be good. I really thought, okay, we got a solid team, but can we go to state? I'm not sure. But, and there's a guy, he needs to coach something. That guy is a coach. He understands the game. I don't care if it's football, basketball, he understands. But he was kind of our coach that senior year too, kind of like he was one of our leaders, along with Dylan and stuff. Glenn was huge. Garrett Fosdick came up huge throughout the year. But here's a funny story. Now, it won't be word for word. First day of practice, we come in the gym, and usually we start at 3:30, but the first day we probably don't start about 4 because I'm talking and whatever, and and about 5 minutes into me talking to them, trying to get a feel of that, and Dylan goes, "Coach, I got something to say." And I looked at him like, "Okay, we need a leader because we just lost 2 of our big leaders." I'm like, "Don't see yours." He walks in, and I'm not going to exact words, but basically he said, "We are going blank to state again. West Hancock on 3. 1, 2, 3, West Hancock." Turned to me and said, "Coach, we're ready for practice." And that's what Dylan said that year. Fight out, like, let's go. Practice, let's start. And so we did. And I don't know, not too many people remember this, but the week before the sub-state final game, a week and a half, whatever, we played West Fork, and they beat us by 19. They just embarrassed us. And then we have West Fork in the sub-state final game in Clarion that year. And I think Ben Eisman probably made one of the biggest plays I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how he stayed up in the air. He's only 5 foot tall. And he jumped up, and it looked like Jordan. As he jumped up, everybody come down. He kept on going up and gets hammered and throws one, banks it in. Seth was huge that game. Dylan. We didn't have a lot of firepower on this team. I mean, we were going to go out and score 80 points. But the kids fought. Glenn Smith was huge on the boards. He was just – Garrett Fosdick made some huge back. We actually called a couple sets for him that we haven't ran forever because he had an advantage in the post, and he came through and rebounded, and Seth did his thing. I mean, we ran a 2-man game probably the whole second half. I put Dylan in the corner, Ben with the ball, Seth screen. We put Glenn and – well, Gavin was there too at the time over on the other side, and we would just pick and roll. Utah Jazz, pick and roll. What do you want to do? Dump it. You want to help? I'll kick it to the corner. Dylan. Ben would take it all the way in, and us coming back and winning. And it was a good time. And Nick Oh God, his brother Hunt. Nick Hunt helped us get to state his junior year. And he came off the bench, didn't play very minutes, but we got in foul trouble really bad against the team on the way to Okoboji. They were really good at Humboldt. We got in foul trouble, so I had to throw Nick in. He hadn't played much, and he finished the half for us. Had 3 fouls in about 4 minutes, but Nick did exactly what we had to do. But Nick doesn't come out senior year. And Nick and I were close. Even his senior year, he didn't come out. That's his choice, whatever. But so we are celebrating after winning the sub-state final game. Nick comes up to me, gives me a big hug, goes, "Coach, I'm so proud of you." He goes, "Can I come out for basketball now?" And him and I just start laughing. We're just giggling up a storm, you know. So, but yeah, that was that. I don't think anybody expected it. I'm not saying we did either, but that group of kids, they want to be the ones to stop it. Yeah. And they just battled their butts off.
Yeah, and I've played hobo golf with Ben and Dylan and Nick a couple of years. It's been a few years now since I've played on, another foursome with them. Good dudes, and man, I hope Ben doesn't watch this, because for you to compare him to Michael Jordan, he will
oh, he's gonna take that and run, but I'm serious. That play, he just elevated and then took up, and we're just sitting on the bench like, what?
This happened.
And he banks it in and gets fouled and N1 to take the lead. It was crazy. And here's a funny Glenn Smith story. It's probably not appropriate, but we had a big game coming up. I'm like, "Glenn, I need 10 rebounds out of you. I need 10 boards tonight out of you." And he goes, "Coach, I get 10 boards, and everybody knows I collect tennis. So I love my tennis shoes." And he goes, "If I get 10 boards, will you buy me a pair of tennis shoes?" I said, "I will buy you a pair of tennis shoes. You get 10 boards tonight." Well, it was all said and done. We only had him for 9. He swears up and down that he went back, watched the film, and he had 11. So every time he sees me, he's like, "You owe me a pair of shoes." I'm like, "You only had 9 boards. You only had 9 boards." "No, I watched the film. I had 11. And so the last time, he's engaged now, and he's a state trooper, and they live in Algona. But I told him, I said, "I tell you what, Glenn, when you guys decide to get married, I will get you his and her shoes. That will be our wedding present to you and your wife from me and my wife." He goes, "Okay, deal, Coach."
Nice. I actually ran into Glenn at the Britt Bar and Grill the other day. He ordered a couple books, and I was up there getting rid of them. And he came up to eat. It must have been his dad he was eating with, and had a little quick chat with him. So he's a good dude. So
yes.
So 3 trips to state. You talked earlier. People said to you when you got to Britt, "Well, we're a football and a wrestling school." Well, if we recap between girls and boys basketball, the girls went to state in 2011, 2012. The boys go in 15, 16, and 17, and then the girls go in 19 and 20, which includes a trip to the state title game. That's 7 West Hancock basketball teams at state in like a 10-year period. And then since 2020, we've still had some pretty good teams, a lot of good players. I'd say you and Coach Sonius have done a good job of, we're a football school, a basketball school, a wrestling school, we're kind of a track school. There's a whole lot of good things going on in a small school up in north central Iowa, I'd say. So yeah. So
well, and I'll take it like Coach Sanger always said, and Mark kind of adapted from his dad. We're lucky. What this school does and how successful we are, it's not like that in all small towns. I mean, and we can be good in everything. I mean, hopefully our volleyball develops a little bit more. I think we got the right man for the job for baseball, and Jalen. That's his love, so I think he's going to get that turned around. We get softball going. I tell you what, we are lucky, and it doesn't just happen all the time, and the coaches' times and the kids' times. I mean, it just doesn't happen. But also, it doesn't happen with all of our wives, because as a coach's wife, I mean, even speech, drama, whatever, you're gone early in the morning, you get home late at night, and you have to have that special someone at home to realize, hey, this is what they are. And my wife and I always had a running joke, because she'd go out visit with friends or our friends or whatever, and I'm, watching film or working on the next day or whatever, and she'd go out and I'm not home yet, which is awesome. But it was a running joke. It's like, well, where's Brian? Well, it's basketball season. We're divorced.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. I mean, and it was all in fun, but there's a lot of time put into it. So you got to give a lot of credits to all the wives too, or husbands, if the female's the head coach or the drama coach or speech. I mean, we got a lot of good things going on in this school, and we're lucky.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's one of those things I tell people it's not common because there's a lot of people from a lot of other schools. They don't even know what's going on at their school. We have alumni who are, always involved and at the games and watching on the live stream. And people are, look at the football staff. I think everybody but one is a West Hancock alum. And CJ we like, so we'll count him in there. As a good guy, good coach. Just we're lucky, and we're not lucky. It's not we're lucky that we've been so good. It's that we're lucky that we've had such good
The
success.
people that we have, we're lucky to have the people
Yeah.
and the coaches that we have in this school.
Yeah, the kids and the
They're
coaches
second
put
to
in the
none
work.
all the way across the board.
Yep, definitely.
Yep.
So one of those guys you wanted to talk about, and I put in my notes, would be Bob Sanger. We touched on him a little bit earlier, but he was a mentor of yours. He helped you get this job. He became a friend. What can you say about Coach Sanger?
I don't know if words can describe how I feel about Coach Sanger. Not too many people know this, but so me being the AD and him coaching when I first got here, he'd come in school about 1:30, and that was my AD prep time was in the afternoon. So I would go into his office and sit down or start talking to him, and him and I just threw stuff at him, and I was kind of like his psychologist. So what do you think or whatever? And I thought it was kind of weird that he was asking for my opinion on things. But then thinking, okay, football's over and it's basketball, so I'm in basketball mode. Bob came in every single day about the same time, sat in my office and says, Coach, I'm here. What do you need? And so I would throw stuff at him, and him and I would just talk, and we had that special bond, and he's sorely missed. Everybody misses him. I wouldn't have this job if it wasn't for him. I love the guy, and Linda has been fantastic. Those two, they are West Hancock. Those two are West Hancock, plain and simple. And no one embodies that more than those two and what they've done here over the last 50 years or whatever until. But I appreciate everything Bob has done, and Mark and I are pretty close. So I appreciate everything because he didn't have to take me in. Bob didn't. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame track football coach, and for him to come in, and I still remember the one time asking me, because when I was the head football coach, we ran 5 plays out of 5 wideouts, and we had just black 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we drill it so if it was a hurry up, and he wanted every single note on that. And I looked at him like, you ain't running no 5 wide. Why do you want that? And he goes, well, no, seriously, I want you to show me those 5 plays because you never know. And so we sat there and talked X and O's, and he's like, well, I like that, and I don't like that, but we just talked, and then we talked about life and family and kids, and just he was a friend, and he's sorely missed also.
Definitely. And I like how you said that they are West Hancock. Obviously, there's a ton of other people that are a part of it, but when you think of West Hancock and you said who's the one person that comes to mind, I would say 99 out of 100 times that's who you're going to say. And that's not
Right.
a diss on anybody else. It's just like I said, he didn't
And
have
we
to.
got great people. We got great people in this community all the way around.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say that, because
No.
we are lucky to have the community that we have and the support that we have, and the families that go way back are still in this town. I mean, you don't see that in other small towns, because eventually some kids and they're gone, and that kind of stops. But here, it's a special place. Kids after kids, they want to come back and they want to live here and they want to raise their kids here and they want their kids to come here. So that is special.
Definitely. Yeah. And like Bob, he didn't have to come at 1:30 during basketball season. His season was over. He was getting ready for his next track season, but he made sure, well, he helped me during football. I better help him. Wasn't I better? I have an obligation. It was I want to, is always the
Right.
thing I got about him. He wanted everything and everybody at our school, our community, to be the best it could be. So,
and he wanted everybody to be successful. He wanted everybody to be successful. And like I said, he helped me out a ton. And he was probably one of, if not my biggest supporter in this school.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I wish he was still here.
Oh, me too, man. He'd still be on the sideline in a couple weeks, coaching away. But man, we're lucky to have Mark and his staff and a lot of his former players there. And Jackson's going to be a senior this year, and it's going to be a pretty fun season, I think, for Jackson and his senior classmates and the younger guys coming up the ranks. And just
the seniors, they're one of the most talented to come through in a long time. And I'm not just saying that because of my kid, but but it's not all about talent. Who's going to be the leader? Who's going to keep the team together? Who's going to do what we got to do? And who's going to speak up? And, that's what it comes down to. You have all the talent in the world, but someone's got to be the leader and speak up. But that group is awful talented. But it's only going to take you so far.
Yep, there's a whole lot more to it than just talent, that's for sure. So we're going to wrap this thing up. I'm really excited about my next podcast on August 8th. I'm going to be in Altoona at a senior living center with Jerry Coonsey. Jerry was the head wrestling coach at Britt in 1956, and his team was 2 points away from winning the state championship against Davenport, and Davenport's coach was Jim Fox, who started the Britt wrestling program in 1946. Jerry's going to get on the Zoom with me, and then we're going to Zoom with the last two state qualifiers that are still alive from that 56 team. Ron Kelly's down in Florida. He was quarterfinalist 3 years in a row, and he was third at Iowa, an All-American in college. And then the other guy, Bill Reeb-Simon, was the head coach at Hampton for a lot of years. Bill had an illness that prevented him from playing any sports his first 3 years of high school. He was cleared and able to go out his senior year for wrestling. He went 6-4-1 as a senior in the regular season and ended up going all the way to the state championship match of his senior year after not wrestling for 3 years. So I got all three of those guys coming on the podcast with me August 8th. I'm really excited for that one. I love that era of Britt athletics back in the 50s. Then after that, I have the 2015 boys basketball team we've talked about today. And then the 1973 football linemen from the Britt state championship team of 73. We're going to watch the championship game together. And then Nick Schmidt, and then Curt Diemer, the guy who kind of helped spearhead getting the Hall of Fame going, was a great wrestling coach down in Southeast Iowa. So stay tuned for those episodes, and then that'll get us into football season, playoff podcast episodes with Jay and Kevin talking about the playoffs and whatnot. So, Coach P, we're going to wrap this up. Like I said, any last-minute things, shout-outs, people you forgot to mention earlier? I always just leave this open for you to wrap it up.
I probably did forget somebody. If I did, I apologize. But it was a great run. They can't take those banners away from us in the gym, So what we did as a team, as a coaching staff, it's pretty special, and it'll be there forever. Thank you for what you do and all the stuff you do for the school, the Legacy Fund, all that. The book is amazing. I'm not a reader, but I'm actually read it. I've started reading it, and I'm up to the middle of last season.
Okay.
So I've read that much of the book. The book is awesome. So and it does get a little bit more interesting when you see your son's name in there, but I do call him out and say, see, you dropped a pass here. He even wrote it, and he's like, God, did you have to put that in there? I'm like, well, it's true. You dropped
It's,
pass. But
it's a historical book. It's history.
so, yep. So, thank you to all your sponsors for sponsoring tonight with me being on. So just keep doing what you're doing, and thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Coach P. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles.